It has been such a long time since I have done a book review video on YouTube. So here we go. Books I read in March 2023. Now, the reason why, I have to tell you, the reason why I haven't been reading a lot of books is because I've been studying plant medicine and energy healing, and last year I was teaching empaths in my empath sanctuary, and my whole life became about video, and I kind of didn't have as much time to read. But I've almost finished studying, and we closed the empath sanctuary at the end of last year. So suddenly I have all this time to read. And this month in particular, I have read some really amazing books, but I just want to share two. The first one that I'm going to talk about is this one, Now She Is Witch by Kirsty Logan. And the second one is this wonderful, wonderful author, Veronika Decides To Die. You may be familiar with The Alchemist from Coehlo, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. But this book, anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, before we start talking about books, I want to introduce you to my book journal. So I've started this for this year to keep me on track, so I can not only just read the books, but also record what they made me feel, record the things that they taught me, and also to help me, if I get ideas, if I get inspired by things that I read, I'm going to pop them in here so that I can then explore further. Life is, for me, life is about being an eternal student. So a book journal is my new way of retaining information. Also, over the past few months, I have discovered washi tape. Seriously. So it's also a really beautiful creative outlet. So anyway, the reason I wanted to show you this is because I'm going to read from here what I thought of this book. Now, I'll be honest with you, when I picked this book up from the library, I was thinking this is just going to be a fun, light read because the word witch is in the title, and that generally means that it's just going to be silly and fluffy. And I really just needed silly and fluffy. This book is not at all silly and fluffy. This is a really powerful and gripping feminist story. There's fantasy in here. There's everything. There's an indictment of religion. There's so much to make you think about women, about the roles that women have been forced to play, the roles that women have been told are safe for them to play. So gripping. And just, if you put all of that aside, it is such an entertaining story. It really holds you in. So I read it in under a week. I just could not put it down. Now, I learnt a lot about ways that women have been silenced over the centuries in this book. I learnt in particular about something called bracts. Oh, I'm so glad I wasn't born in those times. Of course, we now have different ways to silence women, but there was a lot in this book that made me quite angry at the way we have been treated. So it's almost like a call to arms, really. It's almost like a keep fighting, we're not there yet sort of story. So let me just read to you the review that I put into my book journal. Okay, so key takeaways. A witch is a woman who owns herself, and that is why men are in fear of her. Women have safe roles to play. The moment you step out of those roles, you become something other. The best name for that other is witch. And, up until this point, I just thought witch was some silly little, just silliness really for young girls. But after reading this book, I have decided that yes, indeed, I am a witch. So definitely want to be if that's what a witch is. So, in my words, a coming of age story, or maybe a story of self-discovery, a feminist tale that exposes the patriarchy for what it is, a bunch of scared, hopeless little boys who for some reason run the world. It's a gripping story full of feminine wisdom and supernatural overtones. An invitation for women to remove the shackles of domestication and truly own themselves. A call to stop believing the stories we've been fed our entire lives and to instead step out on a journey to define ourselves. So I gave And Now She Is Witch by Kirsty Logan 5 out of 5 stars. If you love supernatural stories, if you love stories of women triumphing over all, and if you love historical stories, there's a lot of history in here, then definitely read this book. So the second book that I read in March 2023 that I want to discuss with you is this one, Veronika Decides to Die. Now, the title sounds kind of macabre, but this is such an emotive and beautiful book. It's a story of love and life. It is wonderful, wonderful. This is the first book from this author that I've ever read. I know The Alchemist is a really famous book, but anyway, this is the first one, and it certainly won't be the last. Oh, what an amazing writer. So beautifully put together, so emotive. He brings so many emotions out. So let me tell you a little bit. I'll try not to give anything away. But basically, Veronika decides that she is ready to die. And so she takes an overdose of pills. And she decides, like most women, she decides to do her suicide that way because it leaves a little mess for other people to clean up once she's gone. Typical of how women approach suicide. So obviously she isn't successful and she gets taken to a mental hospital. And that's where the story really starts getting interesting, getting juicy. So her arrival in the mental hospital makes all of the patients start to question their choices and why they are actually in the mental hospital. So this hospital in particular seems to be more interested in turning a profit and staying alive than in actually taking care of their patients. And there are many people there that are there simply because they can afford to be there. So it really, Veronika's arrival and the fact that she so badly wants to die actually begins to make everyone question why they also want to die in this mental hospital. So yeah, it's actually a really beautiful love story. I don't want to give anything away because you have to read it. It's really, really, really beautiful. I give this 5 out of 5 for the style of the writing, for the way Paul just brings so many emotions out of you. I mean, I was angry and I was a little bit annoyed at Veronika for the choices that she was making. And then I was shocked. And by the time I'd finished it, I just wanted to go out and do all the things because it just reminded me that life is amazing, absolutely amazing. So this is like a 5 out of 5 as well. I've read some amazing books this month. So I highly recommend Now She Is Witch for a really gripping, feminist, witchy, supernatural adventure. And I really recommend this one, particularly if you're a little bit bored with life. This will bring some more zest back into it. Awesome. So that's it. And I will see you again next month for another book review because I am on track with my book journal to read a lot this year. All right. Take care of yourself. Namaste.